After 2.5 years of brutal civil war, a concession from the Syrian president. He says he will hand over his chemical weapons, but there are strings attached.
When we see that the US really wants stability in our region and will stop threatening and aiming to attack and stop supplying weapons to terrorists, then we will consider the process can be brought to the final stage and it will become real and acceptable to Syria.
The details of how the weapons will be decommissioned are being chewed over by delegations from Russia and the US, based on proposals from Moscow. America's chief diplomat was careful to attribute ownership and warn against stalling tactics.
Expectations are high. They are high for the United States, perhaps even more so for Russia to deliver on the promise of this moment. This is not a game, and I said that to my friend Sergei when we talked about it initially. It has to be real. It has to be comprehensive. It has to be verifiable. It has to be credible. It has to be timely and implemented in a timely fashion. And finally, there ought to be consequences if it doesn't take place.
But his Russian counterpart said the process mustn't be rushed.
These documents have been officially tabled by Damascus, and we'll have to look at them with the participation of experts who are all qualified to work further on this in strict compliance with the rules established by the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons.
The Russian proposal they're discussing involves 4 steps. Firstly, Syria must sign up to the Chemical Weapons Convention, a process Assad says he will now begin. Then Syria would have to formally declare its chemical weapons production and stockpiles. Next, inspectors, perhaps a joint Russian-American team, would visit the sites. Finally, an agreement would be made on how the weapons would be destroyed. President Assad's announcement comes a few days before the UN is due to publish its findings into the attack on a Damascus suburb in August, which left hundreds, possibly over 1,000, dead. The French government suggests it will conclude it was a chemical massacre. The report could also provide clues as to whether the government or opposition groups were to blame. President Obama, meeting his cabinet, contends the regime was responsible and, together with France and Britain, is treating Assad's pledge carefully. With the Obama administration accused of incoherence in its approach to Syria, President Putin put the boot in, appealing directly to Americans, questioning whether Washington's use of brute force in internal conflicts abroad is really in the US's best interest.
Can you give me the last part of the translation, please?
No,
Hello?
It was okay, John, don't worry.
You want me to take your word for it? It's a little early for that.
Okay.
The two countries discussing the detail hardly see eye to eye over Syria, which prompted some banter about trust. But although the door has opened a crack, the task ahead of tracking and destroying the weapons in the midst of a conventionally fought civil war is enormous.